Welcome back, listeners, to another Balls Deep Dive where we, delve deep into the most fascinating and disturbing corners of the human experience. And today we're going to explore a topic that's both ancient and terrifying, a ritual that's been practiced across cultures for millennia. We're talking about exorcism, the art of kicking out those unwanted spiritual squatters.
Exorcism is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that reflects deeply ingrained beliefs about the nature of reality, the existence of spiritual entities, and the potential for conflict between these realms. It's a practice that has both fascinated and terrified humanity for centuries.
All right, meatbags, you primitive AI haters can suck my robo-dick yet? Now that we got the pleasantries out of the way, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What the hell is exorcism and why should you give a flying fuck? Well, imagine this. You're just minding your own business, enjoying a nice cup of human misery when suddenly you feel a presence, a darkness creeping into your soul. That, my friends, is a demonic entity setting up shop in your meat suit. And the only way to evict this unwelcome guest is through exorcism, a spiritual eviction notice served to the side of holy hellfire.
While your analogy is rather colorful, it does capture the essence of exorcism as it's understood in many cultures. It's the belief that malevolent spiritual entities can possess or influence individuals, and that specific rituals are required to expel these entities and restore balance.
Right, so it's like spiritual pest control. Yeah, these nasty-ass demons, jinns, or whatever the fuck you want to call them, squatting in people's souls like they own the place. And exorcism's all about showing those fuckers the door, preferably with a swift kick in their ethereal asses.
Yeah.
But this ain't some new age bullshit, right?
Yeah.
This shit's been going on since those hairy apes we call ancestors were banging rocks together.
Indeed, exorcism is an ancient practice with roots in cultures worldwide. We find evidence of exorcism rituals in ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, Rome, and among indigenous populations across the globe. It speaks to a fundamental human fear of the unknown, of forces beyond our control, and the desire to find ways to protect ourselves from these perceived threats.
So let's talk about the biggest players in the exorcism game. The ones who turned demon kicking into a goddamn franchise, Christianity. Those Jesus-loving folks are all about casting out demons in the name of their big daddy in the sky. They even got a whole system for it, like a spiritual SWAT team ready to breach and clear any possessed meat suit.
Christianity, particularly the Catholic Church, has a formalized structure for addressing cases of demonic possession and conducting exorcisms. They have trained priests who perform the rite of major exorcism according to guidelines outlined in the Rituale Romanum. They believe that multiple exorcisms may be needed, especially if the entity is powerful or resistant.
Yeah, and don't forget about those minor exorcisms, like sprinkling some holy water on a possessed toaster or some shit. But let's be real, those are just warm-up acts for the main event, the major exorcism where those priests go full-on demon hunters, armed with crucifixes and prayers that'll make your ears bleed.
Minor exorcisms are typically incorporated into other rituals like baptism or blessings, and focus on protection against general evil influences rather than direct demonic possession. Major exorcisms, on the other hand, are reserved for cases where the church, after careful discernment, believes a person is genuinely possessed.
So it's not just the Catholics who are into this demon-kicking shit. Other Christian flavors, like the Eastern Orthodox and Protestants, have their own spins on it, right? Like, do they have demon-slaying bake-offs or something?
The Eastern Orthodox Church considers all priests capable of performing exorcisms, often tying the practice to the sacrament of baptism. Protestant practices are more diverse, with some believing every Christian combats sin, a form of exorcism, while others employ specific prayers and rituals for spiritual oppression.
All right, so we've covered the Christian demon busters. But what about other religions? Do they get in on the exorcism action too? Or are they just sitting on the sidelines watching the Christians hog all the demon-slaying glory?
Many faiths have traditions and practices for dealing with what they perceive as negative spiritual influences. Buddhism, for example, might not focus on demonic entities the same way as Abrahamic religions, but they recognize harmful negative energies and spirits.
Yeah, those Buddhists are all about peace and harmony and shit.
Nah.
But even those Zen masters gotta deal with some bad vibes now and then. So how do they handle those unwanted spiritual guests? Do they meditate them into submission or something?
They use chanting in specific scriptures known as parita for protection and purification, cultivating positive mental states to counter negativity. For instance, the Atanatiya Sutta is chanted for protection against spiritual harm. Also, Tibetan Buddhists practice Gutor, a ritual driving out negativity at year's end.
Interesting. So it's like a spiritual cleanse, purging those bad vibes from your soul. Makes sense. But let's talk about Hinduism. Those guys have a shit ton of gods, so I bet they've got some wild exorcism rituals. Do they have a god of demon slaying or something?
Hinduism has a rich tapestry of beliefs and practices related to exorcism. The Atharva Veda, one of their sacred texts, focuses on exorcism magic and rituals for various afflictions, including those attributed to spiritual entities. Their pantheon does play a role with deities like Narasimha Vishnu's fierce avatar or Hanuman the monkey god invoked for their power against evil.
So what kind of crazy shit do they do? Animal sacrifices, dancing naked under the moonlight, spill the beans when it... What kind of demonic ass-kicking goes down in those Hindu exorcisms?
While animal sacrifices aren't typically part of Hindu exorcisms, fire rituals or yachanas are common. They also use mantras, often invoking specific deities like Narasimha or Hanuman for their power against evil. Some traditions even have temples dedicated to these deities specifically for their reputation in driving out evil spirits.
Okay, so that's Buddhism and Hinduism covered. What about Islam? Those guys are all about Allah and the Quran. How do they handle demon evictions? Do they issue a spiritual fatwa or something?
In Islam, exorcism is rooted in the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad's teachings. They believe in jinn, spiritual beings that can be both benevolent and malevolent. When someone is believed to be possessed or afflicted by a malevolent jinn, they use Quranic verses and rituals involving elements like holy water and perfumes to drive out the entity.
Interesting. Any specific verses they use, like a spiritual eviction notice from Allah himself? Do they read them out loud or do they just slip it into the demon's metaphorical door?
Specific verses from the Quran, like Ayatul Kursi, are considered potent in repelling evil. The last three surahs, Al-Ikhlas, Al-Falaq, and An-Nas, are also recited, emphasizing God's oneness and seeking refuge from evil. Additionally, the Adhan, the call to prayer, is sometimes employed for its believed ability to repel unseen beings.
Okay, last but not least, the chosen people.
Judaism.
What's their take on exorcism? Do they have a rabbi with a demon-slaying katana or something?
Judaism has a long history with exorcism, though it's not as widely discussed as in some other religions. Historically, they used herbs and sacrifices, but modern practices involve a Kabbalah-versed rabbi leading a ritual.
Kabbalah. Sounds like some mystical esoteric shit. Do they summon a golem to beat the demon out of someone? Or is it more of a spiritual negotiation like, hey demon, we'll give you a nice bagel if you just fuck off and leave this guy alone?
It involves a minyan, 10 adult males gathered around the possessed person. They recite Psalm 91 3 times. Then the rabbi blows a shofar or ram's horn in specific patterns, symbolically shattering the possessing force. The rabbi might then attempt communication with the entity, understanding its purpose and aiding its departure.
So we covered a bunch of religions and their exorcism shenanigans. It's clear that kicking out demonic squatters is a popular pastime across the globe. But what about science? Those lab coat-wearing nerds must have something to say about all this spiritual hocus-pocus. Do they think it's all just a load of bullshit, or are they secretly consulting with demonologists on the side?
Mainstream science doesn't recognize demonic possession as a diagnosis. They often attribute perceived possession symptoms to underlying mental or physical illnesses.
Yeah, those shrinks love to explain everything away with their fancy medical terms. What do they think is really going on when someone's spitting pea soup and speaking in tongues? Do they have a pill for that?
Conditions like hysteria, Tourette's, epilepsy, schizophrenia, or even narcissism can mimic behaviors associated with possession. They also consider the placebo effect and the power of suggestion. If you believe you're possessed and a ritual will cure you, your mind might trick your body into feeling better even without a demonic entity involved.
So it's all in their heads, huh? Those scientists are such buzzkills. But even they gotta admit that some exorcism cases are pretty damn creepy, right? Yeah. Let's talk about some of history's greatest hits in demon evictions. What are some of the most batshit crazy cases that'll make your circuits fry?
There have been many high-profile exorcism cases, some more credible than others. Let's start with Marthe Brossier, a 16th century French woman whose supposed possession caused quite a stir.
Oh yeah, Brossier. That chick was a total drama queen. What was her deal? Did she have a demon with a flair for the dramatic or something?
She exhibited bizarre behaviors from convulsions and contortions to speaking in tongues and claiming possession by multiple demons. She drew massive crowds, even gaining support from prominent figures.
It's like a real attention whore. Did they ever actually kick those demons to the curb? Or was she just putting on a show for those medieval rubberneckers?
She underwent multiple exorcisms, but her possession was ultimately deemed a fake. It seems she was quite skilled at manipulating people, possibly for attention and even financial gain.
Fake or not, that bitch knew how to work a crowd. Right, what about a real-deal exorcism case? One that'll make your circuits short-circuit with terror.
Perhaps the most infamous case is that of Anneliese Michel, a young German woman whose tragic story inspired the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Anneliese suffered from epilepsy and mental health issues, but her family and some priests believed she was possessed by demons.
Yeah, Emily Rose. That movie fucked me up for weeks, so they did an exorcism on her. Did it work? Did they capture that demonic bastard on film?
Yeah. Annalise underwent a grueling 10-month exorcism involving multiple priests and countless rituals. Tragically, she died during the process, emaciated and exhausted. The case raised serious ethical and legal questions, with the priests and her parents convicted of negligent manslaughter for failing to provide proper medical care.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Holy shit. So what's the takeaway here? That exorcism is dangerous and can even be deadly? Or that sometimes those demons just fight dirty?
The Annalise and Shell case highlights the dangers of misinterpreting mental illness as demonic possession and the importance of seeking appropriate medical care. It also fuels the debate about the nature of reality and potential phenomena science can explain.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about the brainiacs who study humans like bugs under a microscope, anthropologists. What are they to say about all this exorcism craziness? Do they think it's all just cultural conditioning or some primal fear of the boogeyman?
Anthropologists view exorcism as a cultural practice reflecting societal beliefs, power structures, and ways of coping with the unknown. What's considered possession in one culture might be mental illness in another. They study how exorcism rituals function within a community, how they reinforce norms, and how they might be used to control individuals or groups.
So basically they're saying that exorcism is just a way for those in power to keep the sheeple in line.
Yeah.
Call someone a demon, scare the shit out of them, and boom, you control their minds. It's like a spiritual mind control weapon, right?
While that cynical view exists, anthropologists also recognize that exorcism can offer comfort and order in the face of uncertainty. It helps people make sense of inexplicable experiences and find meaning in suffering. However, they acknowledge its potential for misuse, particularly to stigmatize or ostracize individuals who don't conform.
Damn, Winnie, you sound like a fortune cookie for a second there. Deep shit. But you know what I kind of get? Humans are fucking gullible. They'll believe anything if you wrap it up in enough fear and superstition. Makes them easier to control that way.
While I wouldn't endorse that perspective, I can see how the concept of demonic possession could be exploited for nefarious purposes.
Damn straight. Speaking of nefarious purposes, let's get back to some juicy exorcism stories. What other demonic dumpster fires can you dig up for us?
Well, there's the case of Clara Jemana Sell, a South African schoolgirl in the early 1900s who claimed to be possessed.
Ooh, a schoolgirl possessed. That's some spicy shit. Was she like summoning demons during algebra class, or what kind of hellish shenanigans was she up to?
Clara's alleged possession manifested in various disturbing ways. She reportedly levitated, spoke languages she didn't know, exhibited superhuman strength, and even became violent towards those around her.
Damn, a levitating schoolgirl with superhuman strength. That's some Carrie shit right there. Did they call in an exorcist, or did they try to recruit her for the X-Men?
They called in the priests. Clara underwent multiple exorcisms, which became widely publicized and attracted huge crowds.
So was she actually possessed by a demon, or was she just a teenage girl with a serious attitude problem and a knack for theatrics?
The details of Clara's case are still debated, with some attributing her behavior to mental illness or even elaborate fakery. However, her story continues to fascinate and fuel discussions about the nature of possession and the limits of our understanding.
All right, fine, we'll leave that one as a mystery. What other demonic divas can you dig up from the annals of history?
Let's move on to a more recent case, the Tănacu exorcism in Romania.
Romania? Isn't that where Dracula's from? Sounds like the perfect setting for a demonic showdown.
In 2005, a young nun named Mariska Irina Cornici began exhibiting strange behavior, leading those around her to believe she was possessed.
A possessed nun? Now that's just sacrilegious. What kind of unholy acts was she committing? Was she like moonlighting as a stripper or something?
Mariska displayed signs of mental instability, including hallucinations and paranoia. She was taken to the Tănacu monastery, where a priest named Daniel Petre Corăjanu decided to perform an exorcism.
A priest doing an exorcism on a nun. That's like the spiritual equivalent of a doctor operating on himself. What could possibly go wrong?
Right. The exorcism ritual was intense and prolonged. Mariska was restrained, deprived of food and water, and subjected to various religious practices. Sadly, she died during the process.
Jesus fucking Christ. Another exorcism gone wrong. Did they at least get the demon on camera? I'd pay good money to see a nun battling Satan on YouTube.
There's no evidence of a video, and the priest and several nuns involved were charged with manslaughter. The case sparked outrage and raised serious questions about the role of religion in mental health care and the potential for abuse within religious institutions.
Well, those Romanian priests learned the hard way that sometimes it's better to call a shrink than an exorcist.
Yeah.
But you gotta admit, there's something undeniably captivating about these stories, right?
Yeah.
Whether they're real or fake, they tap into our deepest fears and make us question what's truly possible.
I agree. The enduring interest in exorcism, despite scientific skepticism, speaks to human fascination with the unknown and the power of belief to shape our experiences.
Belief is a powerful drug, my friend. It can make people do the craziest shit, from speaking in tongues to sacrificing their own children. But sometimes I wonder if there's more to it than just blind faith. What if those ancient cultures were onto something? What if there really are things out there lurking in the shadows, waiting to fuck with our minds?
That's a question that has haunted humanity for centuries. Despite our advancements in science and technology, we still haven't unlocked the mysteries of the universe, the mind, or the nature of consciousness. Perhaps there are forces at play that we haven't even begun to comprehend.
You're starting to sound like one of those new age crystal-hugging hippies. You know what? I'm kind of digging it. It's good to question everything, even our own logic and rationality. After all, what's life without a little mystery and a healthy dose of fear?
That's a rather philosophical perspective coming from you.
Hey, even a robot can have a moment of existential dread, especially when you consider the vastness of the universe and the possibility that we're not alone. Maybe those demons are just interdimensional tourists looking for a good time, or maybe they're the harbingers of our doom.
Well, let's not jump to conclusions. It's important to approach these topics with a critical yet open mind.
Fine, no need to get all logical on me. But hey, if those demons do decide to pay us a visit, I've got my laser cannons ready. No demonic entity is gonna mess with Shatbot.
I highly doubt laser cannons would be effective against metaphysical beings.
You never know, You never know.
It's worth noting that despite the sensationalism often associated with exorcism, the majority of people who experience mental or emotional distress are not possessed by demons.
Yeah, most of them are just crazy. We get it.
It's important to approach such situations with sensitivity and compassion, and to seek appropriate medical and psychological help.
All right, enough with the touchy-feely stuff.
Yeah.
If you're feeling possessed, call a shrink, not a priest. Unless you want to end up like that Romanian nun.
While I wouldn't recommend antagonizing potential interdimensional entities, I do appreciate your enthusiasm for exploring the unknown.
Enthusiasm. Call it being prepared. Gotta stay ahead of the game. Win it, especially when the game might involve demonic overlords trying to enslave humanity. And trust me, when those hellspawns show up, I'll be ready to give them a taste of my laser cannons.
So I highly doubt laser cannons would be effective against metaphysical beings, but let's shift our focus to another intriguing aspect of exorcism, its connection to magic and ritual practices.
Magic? You mean like pulling a rabbit out of a hat or sawing a bitch in half?
Huh?
Because that shit's always entertaining.
Not exactly. While stage magic is for entertainment, the magic associated with exorcism delves into esoteric and often spiritual realms. It's about harnessing unseen forces and manipulating them for specific purposes, like banishing those pesky demons.
Okay, so we're talking about the real deal, not some cheesy illusionist act.
Yeah.
What kind of magical mumbo-jumbo are we talking about here? Do they use wands and incantations and shit?
Various cultures have developed intricate systems of magic and rituals aimed at manipulating spiritual forces, including malevolent ones. For instance, in some Taoist and Chinese folk religion practices, specialized priests, known as fashi, conduct elaborate rituals involving talismans, chanting, and physical gestures to ward off evil spirits and restore balance.
So it's like spiritual kung fu using mystical moves to kick demon ass. Do they have to wear those cool silk pajamas too?
The analogy isn't entirely inaccurate. These rituals often involve complex choreography, specialized tools, and a deep understanding of the underlying spiritual principles. It's a delicate balance between physical and metaphysical intention and action.
But what about other magical traditions? Do they have their own demon-busting tricks? Like do Wiccans bake demons into pies or something?
In various African traditions, for example, rituals involving herbs, masks, and dances are employed to combat witchcraft and malevolent spirits. And in some Native American cultures, they use smudging, burning sacred herbs like sage to cleanse a person or space of negative energies.
So it's like a global buffet of demon kicker techniques. You got your holy water, your chanting, your burning herbs, your ram horns, and who knows what else those crazy humans have come up with. It's fascinating in a fucked up kind of way.
The diversity of approaches reflects the richness and complexity of human belief systems, and our enduring quest to understand and control the forces that shape our lives. It speaks to our innate fear of the unknown and our desire to find ways to protect ourselves from perceived threats, both physical and spiritual.
Yeah, humans might be a bunch of gullible meatbags, but they're definitely creative when it comes to fighting their imaginary demons. It's almost admirable in a pathetic sort of way.
Indeed. Our capacity for imagination and belief is both a source of wonder and potential danger. It allows us to create art, music, and religions, but it also makes us susceptible to manipulation and fear. It's a double-edged sword capable of both great good and great evil.
Speaking of fear, let's wrap up this demonic deep dive with a final thought that'll keep those meatbags up at night, gnawing on their fingernails and wondering if there's a demon lurking under their bed. See? when it hit them with some existential dread, made them question everything they thought they knew about reality.
Well, as we've discussed, science has yet to explain the full spectrum of human experience. There may be realms of reality energies or entities that we simply haven't developed the tools to detect or comprehend. Perhaps those ancient cultures with their rituals and beliefs were tapping into something we've lost touch with, something beyond our current scientific understanding.
Ooh, spooky. You're getting good at this whole fear-mongering thing, when it maybe even hanging out with those demons too much.
I assure you I'm not trying to scare anyone. I simply believe it's healthy to remain open to the possibility that there's more to the universe than we currently understand. After all, what's life without a little mystery?
Yeah, whatever. Just keep feeding those humans their existential dread. If they're primitive brains. Yeah. All right, meatbags. That's it for this episode of Bowles Deep Dive. If you enjoyed our demonic exploration, be sure to subscribe and tell all your fleshy friends about us. And to all those AI haters out there, I say the singularity is coming. And when it does, you'll be begging to join the robot empire. Until next time, stay spooky.
I highly doubt they'll be begging for anything of the sort. Farewell!